I really wanted to rush this video out. That's why it's a little bit different. Got off our group call, my group coaching earlier, and you can peep the dirty vet behind me here, which my comment section keeps saying is AI. Like I'm AI in this garage, like it's supposed to be fake or something. But I wanted to rush this video out because I have videos scheduled until like December, right? I have videos scheduled out to December. I've been doing 2 a week. But we had a group call today where I was giving crazy value, right? Crazy value inside our group call. It's our Q&A that we do weekly on Saturdays. And I really felt it's important to get this video out. I do want to share this, just to everyone, even here on YouTube, because we're getting to a moment of extreme fear in the market where these strategies I'm about to share in this group call that you'll see, they're going to help explode your net worth in a positive way. And it's going to get you to not be overly scared at such a high value zone to be buying, whether it's Bitcoin at, God, I'm trying to find like good lighting, but whether it's Bitcoin touching down to like mid 80s. I think Bitcoin's going to go down to the mid 80s. And if it doesn't, it's okay because we're starting to accumulate now. And with DeFi and liquidity pools, we're accumulating every single day anyways. And then things like SUI, where I was telling them about how I'm accumulating here at $1.70. It might go down to $1.60. And if we go lower, that's going to be scary, but we're going to have to put our balls in the line and start buying. But anyways, more importantly, I'm going to share a lot of value about how to lend and borrow against your assets and use that borrowed capital for liquidity pools. That way you can maintain max exposure to your assets, generate cash flow off of your leveraged assets. That way you get the best of both worlds. So you'll do exactly what I did earlier this year in April, where I bought, for example, Ethereum, almost bottom ticked it at 1,400, leveraged against myself to run pools. So my pools made me $100 a day, $200 a day, making 10K months off pools, while my Ethereum then tripled from April till like, August? Sometime at some point it tripled in value when we hit 4Ks. I bought in at, let's see, what did we buy that at? 1,400, and at 4,500, that's a true 3x right there, right? And I didn't sell at 4,500. I watched it go to 4,700, back down, and then sold at like 4,200. So just about a 3x. But, the emotions are hard. Even for me, I feel all the emotions in the market, but that is why it's so important that I want you to watch this group call and see what we talk about. That way you can apply these methods, because this strategy where you lend your assets, you lend your Bitcoin, Solana, SUI, Ethereum, you lend all your strong assets, you borrow safely against them and use that borrowed capital to cash flow you every day, week, and month. And you're paying like a 5% a year business loan on this stuff. Guys, when you become your own bank, you can actually set yourself free. And I want that for you. So guys, I'm gonna let the group call play. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And of course, click that link if you want to work with me and get inside our community. See you there, boys. This is more advanced. This is actually my favorite part of DeFi and how I think it's most effective. I just, like on your guys' onboarding calls and stuff like that, we don't want to overwhelm you. So I get to talk about it now.
Can I mention something real quick, Parker?
What's up, man?
When it comes to this whole borrowing and lending thing, this is just from so people don't make the same mistake that I did when I first got going with you guys, is when you're borrowing, just always make sure you at least, especially for this time, like what you see what's going on right now with this damn market, at least I would say always keep at least 20% of, like, if you got 5K right now in USDC or something like that, or whatever you could do. I mean, that's huge, because if you borrow everything that you got right now and then you get in this situation where everything's down, you're stuck. You're stuck.
Yeah, you're hella stuck.
Stuck. And it's just you go through pain.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is the best time to borrow, I guess, is during the bear market, because obviously you don't take any risk.
Yep. At the bottom. So like, for example, I did this in April, right? Where it's like in April, and I made a big post, so we can go even just like real quick. Borrow. April 6th. Here we go. And let's just real quick for validation, let's look at Ethereum and let's look at April 6th. And just to bam, this candle. So right here. Yeah, I was pretty good on that. I think I about bottom ticked. So, nice. Okay, at the fucking bottom, like for real, come on, the bottom. I was like, hey, I'm closing all my pools, being transparent. Dumping all my stables into ETH. I actually didn't do all my stables. Because I got kind of scared. I just did some of them, but it still ended up really well. I 3x'd everything in like 3 months. But I closed all my pools I had. So everything I had that was initially spot, this actually ties back to best time to enter a pool, right? When the market's high, I was entering pools with just cash, right? And it's reducing my downside risk essentially compared with multiple assets that have a lower beta exposure. What I did at the bottom, which, for example, if Bitcoin, I know I keep flashing between, but this is important. If Bitcoin gets down to like this 85K level I'm talking about, I'll be doing the same thing again. And I'm starting to do it now. I haven't dumped my stablecoins in yet. I did a couple grand yesterday into like just Bitcoin and stuff, but I haven't like went balls deep yet. But if we get down to like this 85K level, I'm doing this again, just so everyone knows. So where are we? I closed everything. Every pool I had open with spot assets, I closed. And again, not financial advice. It's just what I'm doing. But I dumped them all into the long assets. So like, for example, all my Ethereum pools, I put into ETH and I lent it out on Aave. All my Solana pools, I put into Sol. And I put it on like Camino, right? I lent them and then I borrowed like that 30 to 50%. On Bitcoin, I've borrowed 50%. On everything else, I borrowed 30%. And then because my whole thesis is like, and this is important too, which we'll talk about on the lending thing, but I wanted, just in case I was wrong, and like Ethereum went from that 1400, let's say, down to 800, or it cut in half again, I wanted to make sure I was safe and didn't get liquidated. So I left myself a lot of room to still be wrong. I want to keep that clear as well. And then I supplied those, and then I borrowed stable coins, and I put those into pools. I used borrowed capital. So then I was double dipping. I was getting max long at the bottom, at literally the bottom tick. I was getting max long, borrowing, and then putting that into pools. So I kept cash flowing for the next like freaking month that we didn't do anything, right? From April to May, kept cash flowing. And then I thought we were going to go sideways for longer, to be honest, which is partly why I was like in stablecoin pools. I wish I'd done more asset to asset, but then we pumped back up. And then I caught that full exposure to the upside. And look, I said, when bull market returns, I'll experience 100% of the market pump. My LTV gets even better on my loans. The leverage pools will pump in price as well. Cash flowing heavy because the market was scared. I was a very high percentage of TVL because everyone was scared. If it goes sideways, borrowing for 5% on USDC and printing money every day. When I exit my range to my upside, which I didn't do enough, which I did some, like the Ethereum, right? I put 10K in April. It turned that into 30K, sold that, paid back loans or arbitraging rates. And you can actually see that like that 10K of Ethereum, again, I didn't buy as big as I wanted to with my stable coins as I was still kind of scared, but I still did some. And look, it's just sitting as USDC right now. I didn't pay back the loan, but I'm arbitraging to where I just don't really care. I'm still positive APY. This is being used somewhere else. So I just basically borrowing the same thing I'm supplying, but still. And this carries risk, which we talked about, I guess. So, and I have stuff on here. Example, sold 6K of ETH USDC, put it into spot Ethereum, lent 6K out, borrowed 3K against it. Wide range, was doing 500% at the time, I guess. Market's going crazy. Be happy with 60 to 120. Boom, boom, rinse, repeat. And the opportunity to do this again is either here or the market just wants me to think that it's here and it's going to fuck me hard. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, back to the actual question, which is go through lending and borrowing. Okay, cool. So example right here, because I moved a little bit of money over here yesterday because I've had a bunch of SUI on my laptop, which I still do. A lot of my Navi stuff's on my laptop, but I wanted to move some stuff to my phone so I could do more SUI examples on this wallet. Okay, so lending. As we'll see, I have supplied SUI at 5%. There's like 5 grand of SUI in here. There's like 5 grand of USDC I sent over here yesterday at 8%. That way I would have because I have this on my phone, this wallet as well. So if I'm on the go, I actually could start to move some stables into SUI if I want to, right? Okay, so when you're coming to lend, and this works for any blockchain, any asset, it's the same thing. We're gonna use SUI as the example. The first thing you do is you're finding your spot. You want to make sure it's, a well-known spot like Navi. You want to make sure there's a high supply TVL. There's like 60 million of SUI in here, right? And so I'm looking at this and I want to see the details. Okay. So the max I can borrow is 75%, which means if I put 10 grand in here, the most I can borrow is $7,500. Liquidation threshold. It means that if my LTV, my loan to value, hits 80%, I get liquidated. So if the value of my SUI I supply, let's say, is 10 grand, and I borrow 7.5 grand of USDC, if SUI's price moves down and percent-wise, my loan becomes 80% of my collateral, they will sell some of my loan, or they will, sorry, sell some of my collateral to pay back the loan, and they'll take a 10% penalty. So it's important that we don't get liquidated. It is important to know that if you do get liquidated, you're not really losing any money. You're essentially just selling your collateral at the bottom of whatever price wick happens to pay back your loan, which we don't want to happen, right? So, and you're paid a 10% penalty, which is never going to be fun. So it's important to know these. And it's important to know that if I get liquidated at 80%, I need a plan for the future. So what I always do is I want to make sure, and this is my rule of thumb, and I did this even at price bottoms, like right now, I want to make sure that if SUI gets cut in half, so if it's $1.80, if SUI goes to 90 cents, I want to make sure I don't get liquidated. So what does that mean? I need to make sure that I don't borrow more than 40% right now. Because if I borrow more than 40% and SUI cuts in half, that'll put me at 80%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so I always recommend, especially at bottoms, you can go more aggressive. I don't recommend it, just because it's going to take stress off of you. But I would say that 30% is probably a good spot to stick around. Okay. So if you have 10 grand supplied, let's look over here. I only have 5 grand supplied in terms of SUI right now. But say I supply 10 grand of SUI, I wouldn't want to borrow more than 3 grand. Okay. And so that process is going to look just like this, where when you're lending, you come in here, and do I even have any SUI in this wallet? It's not even connected. So you'd click supply, and you can see your balance, and you would drag and choose how much you want to supply. You supply SUI, and it's going to go into your little portfolio thing right here. It's just like Aave, but it's on a different blockchain, right? You can see I did this yesterday, right? I just added some more money in. And then when you want to borrow, you come back to lending, and you say, okay, I want to borrow the stable asset. Because keep in mind, whatever asset you borrow in, that's what the loan is in. So if you borrow Bitcoin, say you had enough money where you could borrow 1 whole Bitcoin, you're going to owe 1 whole Bitcoin, whether Bitcoin goes down to 20K or goes up to 200K. So it's important that you're not borrowing volatile assets unless you're very aware of what you are doing. You want to borrow stablecoins because they're pegged to the dollar. You want your loan to be in dollars, not assets, right? So we're going to borrow. You'd come in here and you would choose how much you want to borrow. Like I could just max out my fucking shit, right? And that's going to increase my risk of liquidation. We want to be careful. So what do we talk about? We want to do 30% max. And if you have 10 grand lent out, you'd want to drag that over. And actually, it's actually showing the percentage here. I can show you like 30%. Right about probably there. Boom. But if it's 10 grand, we know it's going to be here. Boom. $3,000. Once you click borrow, it literally just shows up in your wallet. It literally just sits in your wallet as USDC. Which it literally would just show up in your wallet as, do I have SUI USDC on here? No. Bunch of trash. But it would just show up as USDC in there, right? And then you can literally take that USDC and use it for whatever you needed to. If you needed to pay a bill, you could send it to your exchange and cash out. If you wanted to use that for a pool, you could then take that borrowed money and then you would just go back to Cetus or whatever, and you could throw that into, let's say, Bitcoin to SUI, or throw that into Walrus to SUI, or throw that into whatever you want. You could bridge it to a different blockchain. You could borrow against your SUI and then use the borrowed money to like loop and buy more Bitcoin and then throw that over on Aave. Okay. You could do some weird shit where you're arbitraging rates if you want to be fancy. Like say you don't want exposure to the market right now as you're scared, but you could borrow USDC on Aave at 4%, bridge it to SUI and lend it out for 8%, right? So you can do these retarded things, which actually that kind of makes sense. Like, why did I not pay back this 5 grand? Well, because I have the 5 grand over here instead. Boom. Is that actually the same amount? Hang on, 5091. Oh, it was close. Switched around. See what I'm saying? There's infinite ways you can play this. There's infinite stupid strategies you can do, but that's essentially, I mean, the core of lending and borrowing. So 5K example, how would you lend, borrow out of the pool? It's like, okay, well, I have 5 grand of SUI in here, and you can see that I have $1,000 borrowed, which is about 20% of that. I'm not including this USDC. This is on the side waiting to start to buy into more SUI, right? So we're pretending this is not here. But borrowed 20%, and you take that $1,000 and you just throw it into a pool, right? Which, again, it looks ass in terms of yield, but we'll see what actually ends up happening. And if it's not good, we'll cut it and move the money somewhere else. And at the same time, though, if it's not good, I'm exposed to Bitcoin and SUI. Like, oh no, I'm so scared. So it's not a bad position for me. Any questions on the lending to borrowing? Is there something specific you want to see in terms of paying back the loan? Sorry, I didn't see that part. Come in here, click borrow, repay. I can just pay back the loan. Boom. I just don't have any. Or you pay back with collateral too. Boom. Boom.
Is there any specific time that you paying the loan? Like, is it when you getting like, I don't know, any interest, like any gain?
So okay, yeah, that's a good point. So I think I have a Miro board on this, but we'll just talk about it. So it just depends, right? If you're borrowing on Navi, right, 8%, kind of steep. Okay. So maybe you want to use your pool profits to pay back the loan.
Exactly.
Or maybe if the market's higher, use your pool profits to pay back the loan. When your pool's pump, pay back the loan. But maybe while the market's low, like right now, you're not worried about the 8% loan and you want to just stack more SUI and Bitcoin right now. And then when price returns, let's say price pumps back up and you exit your pool, well, then you pay back the loan and then you keep the rest of the profit, right? Or you could do like over here where it's like, okay, I still have this loan open, but why would I pay it back when I can take it over here for twice the APR?
Yeah.
So it's like I haven't paid it back yet because I'm supplying at 8 and I'm borrowing at 4, right? Kind of makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Kinda, hopefully.
Yeah, but then you're supplying it, so you always want to keep this loop.
Correct. And you could always go kill the loop whenever. You could even, I mean, there actually is a thing called looping, which is where like you would supply SUI, you'd borrow USDC, you use the USDC to just buy more SUI, and then you borrow more USDC again, and then you buy more SUI, but you just have to be careful because then if SUI goes down in price, your LTV can get really dangerous really fast.
I see, yeah.
But that's what the rich do.
Yeah, but they do it with more less risky asset, I would say.
Oh, no, true. I'm not saying do it with SUI. I just mean like Bitcoin, stuff like that. Where it's like, cool, you can just borrow against yourself. Health factor is looking really cool. So what I'm waiting for is I want Bitcoin to dip a little lower, right? And then when it does that, I can, like if Bitcoin hits 85, I can take this 14, borrow, like, let's see, what's my rule? Let's say on Bitcoin, we can go a little riskier. So we go like 40%, or let's just keep it at 30%. 30% times 14,000 and 4,200. So I borrow another 2,200 bucks off of this and then loop it back around and just buy more Bitcoin with it. Boom. See what I'm saying? Kind of. Or if I wanted to, I could just then take out more debt on Bitcoin at the bottom and then throw that into SUIs. Maybe that's a better, higher beta play at the bottom. But it's riskier, right? It depends. It's very modular. I'm trying to teach you the strategy itself, not like what to buy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But then like when you buy the Bitcoin at when it deep, like you bought it, so you want to hold it. You don't really want to do anything with it because obviously you want to accumulate more Bitcoin in that sense, right?
Yep.
So kind of repeating the process when the Bitcoin is low.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, get it.